Welcome to Hot Ones. It's the show with hot questions and even hotter wings. Today we're joined by my wife, Kayla. She's an Army veteran, social media influencer, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome awareness advocate, full-time social media manager, as well as a full-time student currently pursuing her PhD in communications. Kayla, welcome to the show. So she doesn't know what she signed up for, but I just gave her a heads up and I was like, hey, we have two very different experiences when it came to the military and specifically basic training. And then we wanted to talk about tips for passing basic training if you are looking at enlisting soon and you plan to be going through any branch of service basic training. We're gonna give you some tips that hopefully help you out along the way so that you're successful the first time you get there. So a little bit of background, we met while we were both active duty. We were both officers at Fort Jackson in Columbia, South Carolina. So the reason I think that we are able to speak on this topic is a couple of reasons. One, because we went through basic training ourselves. We actually went through two different flavors of basic training. I went to West Point, so it was a very tailored experience. A lot of people say, oh, West Pointers didn't actually go through basic training. I went through a basic training. It was just the West Point version of it. Alternatively, you commissioned via OCS, correct?
Yes.
Officer Candidate School, which actually requires you to go through a normal basic training first. So you went through the exact same basic training that every enlisted soldier does in the Army, right?
Yes, at Fort Jackson.
For how long?
9 weeks.
I think my basic training was 6 weeks. Yours is 9, which was followed by OCS, which is an additional how many weeks?
12 weeks.
So 9 plus 12 is a lot.
It's too many weeks.
21 total weeks in basic training is a very long time. And then the irony of the whole situation is that, we served, I spent most of my time at 3ID. She actually served in the 101st. We were all over the United States. I was in South Korea for a while, but we actually ended our Army careers at Fort Jackson managing one of the basic training units at that installation. So not only do we know what it's like to be a recipient of that training and go through it ourselves, we actually have managed the drill sergeants and provided and logistically planned for all of the training that actually happens on post as it exists right now. So two very unique perspectives, and I think that gives us enough authority to at least be like, hey, this is how you pass basic training, right?
Yeah, I actually came back as an officer in the exact same basic training unit that I went
Shout out
through.
to 360th, right?
Yes, 360th.
What was
Echo.
it? Row hard.
Row hard.
Did they still say that? Did they say that back then?
I don't remember.
So on top of all of those things, we both still share a very strong passion for physical fitness. We're both personal trainers. I got my certification through ISSA, yours is through NASM. We don't maintain those certifications anymore. It's just one of those things you pay for over a period of time. But the knowledge is still there. We both built upon that knowledge over time. And so we do feel like what we're about to tell you is going to be beneficial. All that being said, she has no idea what my 3 tips are, and I have no idea what her 3 tips are. So we're going to see if they're remotely aligned and then just talk about why it's going to be beneficial.
I don't know if I understood the assignment.
You can change your answers right now.
No, I have to stick with these.
Okay, I'm gonna let you start because I think there's one that's very obvious. What is your number 1 tip for passing basic training?
My number 1 tip is to exercise before you go to basic training. I can't tell you the number of people that get to basic training and can't do a single push-up or sit-up, and I am not exaggerating.
Yeah.
Like most people, you look around at and you're like, you probably do 1 push-up or sit-up, right?
Yeah.
That is not the case.
Not even
And
close.
you get there and you are going to run probably a minimum of at least 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And you are going to do a lot more rucking than you've ever done in your life. So my first piece of advice is to start exercising, start running, start rucking before you get to basic training, and it'll suck just a little bit less.
I agree. That was totally my first answer. I think that would be everybody's obvious first answer. But I actually tailored mine to where my number 1 tip for preparing for basic training is to spend time on your feet. So I think one of the most unexpected and most weirdly difficult aspects of basic training is learning to be on your feet for 12 to 16 hours a day for 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks on end. That takes a toll on your body that a lot of people are not used to. You're gonna get to basic training, you're gonna stand in line for a very long time. You're gonna stand in line at the DFAC, you're gonna stand in line at the medical facilities, you're gonna stand in line while you're waiting for your laundry, you're gonna stand in line while you're waiting for your haircut, you're gonna stand in formation, you're gonna march to and from the buildings, you're gonna run during PT, you're gonna run from A to B for no particular reason whatsoever. And at the end of the day, you will have spent, no joke, 12 to 16 hours on your feet. And that takes a toll. A lot of people don't know what it's like to do that for 1 day. But to do that for 7 days in a row, for weeks on end, is a lot harder than it sounds. Would you agree?
Yes.
Yeah. Was that something that you realized in the moment, or was that like not a challenge for you?
I have fallen asleep standing up
Yeah.
at parade rest.
Yeah.
Literally fallen asleep.
Yeah. If you get caught falling asleep, also you're gonna be asked to stand up, so that's more time spent on your feet.
Yes, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Well, two individuals thought it would be a good idea to decide to fight. And so we just played a fun game of go upstairs, put on your PTs. You have less than 2 minutes to get back downstairs. And of course,
No,
that's not possible.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you come downstairs and they say, oh, okay, you guys didn't do it in time. All right, go back upstairs, put your full uniform on, full kit,
Classic.
come back downstairs.
Yeah.
And then we just stood there at parade rest for about an hour.
Yeah.
I just physically couldn't stay awake.
Yeah.
But those are the moments. You are going to get smoked a lot. And one of the methods that sometimes is used when you're getting smoked is not even just having someone tell you to do push-ups. It might be just stand at parade rest
Yeah.
for an hour, which doesn't sound hard until you start doing it.
Yeah. And getting smoked is basically like code word for physical punishment. You're not allowed to physically punish people anymore, but you can do corrective training in the form of physical fitness.
Yes.
And that's
group
kind of how that
punishment.
works.
The Army is a big fan of group punishment.
100%. And there's one of the, it's like one of those things where like you can't punish somebody for standing up or like forcing them to stand as a method of punishment because there's nothing to like directly learn from that other than this sucks and I'm not going to mess up again. But as far as I'm aware, there's no regulations that say, hey, a soldier can't spend more than this amount of time on their feet unless they have a medical profile that says they can't do it. So get in shape, lose weight, because that's going to help, and start spending time on your feet. Pro tip number 1, which was basically shared, so it's the same for both of us.
Okay.
All right, do you want me to lead with my pro tip number 2, or do you want me to like tell me what yours is?
Okay.
I actually
You
forgot what mine
can't
is.
look at them. I have my sticky note
Oh, my peg is cramping.
because I can't remember anything for longer than 10 seconds.
You're telling me.
So my second tip is to just do what you're told and follow the rules. You would think that would be a given
Yeah.
at basic training,
Yeah.
but you would be surprised the number of people that think that they can get away with not following the rules. And the Army is not the place for you if you think you can skate by and cheat the system. Just follow the rules because, again, talking about group punishment, if you mess up, you get caught doing something you're not supposed to do, it's not just you who gets in trouble. It is every single person, probably in your company or in your basic training unit, that's going to get in trouble. And at that point, not just is everyone else getting smoked for something that you've done,
Yeah.
you've now made an enemy out of everyone else. You know, the Army is just a giant team. Those are your teammates. If you are entering the Army thinking like it's all about you, again, it's probably not the place for you.
That's accurate. You know, I think that's probably a good point to highlight the differences between our basic training experiences. You went through enlisted basic training, and I went through officers basic training. And as you can imagine, the requirements to enter those two things are just different. It's a different population. We both ended up being officers on the backside, but people go into West Point with a different sort of mentality and approach to the military versus the enlisted side. I feel like we didn't have as many of those personalities, but I definitely saw them later. And it's kind of weird how many people show up with an attitude, and it's like, there's nothing to gain from that. You gain nothing, the cadre gains nothing, your classmates and coworkers gain nothing. It just brings everybody down. So I think that that's probably a pretty good pro tip.
Yeah, I really tried to keep my head down most of basic training and just follow the rules, and I think it just made it a lot easier versus trying to find any possible way to take a shortcut, which like you'll see quite a bit going through basic training, at least the basic training that I went through. There's a lot of people who just try to take shortcuts still to this day. Even, you know, when we were officers in a basic training unit, you still see it. Everyone thinks that they can cheat the system, and you can't. You will 100% get caught. So just follow the rules.
That's pretty good. Okay, my pro tip, and I debated on this one because I think this might set off a few people, and I'm still not entirely sure how I want to phrase it. But basically, my pro tip, number 2, for preparing for basic training is to not spend time shooting prior to basic training. And the reason I say that is because no matter what you learn prior to basic training, you're going to have to relearn it the Army way. And it is almost easier to start from scratch and to build upon a foundation of nothing rather than have to break down any poor habits you picked up prior to the military having to undo those habits and then relearn how to be safe on a range and use a weapon effectively. And I say that because there was a lot of people who show up and they grab a rifle and they're like, oh, my dad's an expert, my dad's a colonel, or I was a competitive shotgun skeet shooter on my high school team. And like, there's some fundamentals there that carry over for sure. But even if their habits are good, you still have to learn to do it the Army way. And I saw a lot of people get very frustrated and having to spend hours or even days on the range qualifying because they didn't have the proper skills prior to basic training. Does that make any sense?
It does. Probably get hate for this statement, but I noticed in my basic training class, I grew up hunting with my dad. Like I've shot weapons many a time, but I went into basic training just listening and wanting to learn. I was not the kind of person who was going to mention any of that because I was not sure I could, live up to, I guess, like the expectations of talking myself up. But one thing that I noticed in my unit when I went through basic training and as an officer on the backside in a basic training company, it's always the ones who say, I grew up hunting. I'm a super good hunter. I've been hunting since I was like 11. Yeah. And then they get out there and they can't shoot. So sometimes it's best to just stay quiet.
Now that you mention
learn what the drill sergeants are teaching you because they're really good at what they do. And also the whole rifle qualification has changed even since we went through. You used to stay prone and fire the whole time. And now you have to do mag changes, go from laying to kneeling to standing. It's not exactly what it used to be. And it is definitely not exactly like hunting.
Yeah.
You are simulating now a combat environment. I know you're never going to get close to that, but that's what you're trying to be trained for at this point. And it is not the same as the things that you've done growing up, I promise you.
Now that I think about it, I actually specifically recall a lot of the girls in my platoon being better shooters than the men. And I think that there's some physiological factors involved. Like women have a naturally lower resting heart rate, don't they?
I believe so.
Also, women carry less muscle mass, which means they're typically more relaxed. They're not as tense. One of my problems when I'm shooting is I'm always just tense and I've got my muscles flexed and I think it's helping me, but it doesn't because your muscles fatigue very quickly. You have to learn to lower your heart rate, relax your body, and then engage the target without being overly tense. But a lot of the girls that I shot with, they were first time goes. They just like, I don't know what this thing is, but I'm gonna follow the instructions.
Yeah.
And they were great shooters immediately. So I don't know if you saw that in basic training, but I definitely recall that now that we're talking about it.
Yeah, I think so.
Cool. Valid tips.
Valid tips.
What's your number 3?
Okay, my third one's gonna sound a little silly, but make friends. Making friends is gonna help you through basic training. Not only do you have individuals that you're going to be able to relate to, you have people that you can reach out to in the future when you are in the middle of your Army career, but it's also going to make the time go a little bit faster. There are individuals that you will see make enemies when they're going through basic training, and I definitely don't think that that is the way to go about things. Again, I think that you should think of almost everyone in your unit as a team player as long as they are being a team player. And I just think it also makes your whole experience a lot easy because your family and friends aren't there. You might get a phone call once a week, maybe, to call back to your family. These are the people that you have to talk to, and it's going to make your experience go by a lot faster if you make friends and you are not a selfish individual and you are actually taking the time to get to know people, help other people too. As a personal trainer going through basic training, there was a girl who would do my eyebrows and I would help teach her how to do push-ups. Like there are just some fun instances that you wouldn't even think would happen. But in basic training, you might have knowledge that can help someone else. They might be able to help you, but you'll never know if you just keep to yourself, or worse, if you're a super hard-headed individual that's making basic training harder for everyone else.
And that was a good tip. You said you didn't think about these, but those are all really good.
No, I didn't. I wrote, make friends.
Make friends. But it matters. That's true because, it sucks to be alone. And even though you physically are not alone, you were physically surrounded by hundreds of stinky people that you don't really want to be around. It's true that just 1 or 2 people in your inner circle can completely make or break your experience. I remember there was some people who went through my basic training who had prior service experience, And it was just something as simple as like shining shoes. Like I just didn't know what to do. And like, they were like, hey, shine your shoes. The cadre were like, hey, make sure your shoes are shiny. I was like, shoes can be shiny? Like, I understand like how that works. But yeah, so when some previous enlisted guy came up to me and was like, yeah, dude, clean it like this. This is where you use the water. This is where you use the wax. And then we use a flame and make it all polished and shiny. He like knew all the tips and tricks, and it like made me look stellar because then I'm walking around with like properly shined shoes. But I never would have known how to do that had it not been for that guy.
Yeah, OCS was even more important, I think, to listen. You know, OCS, you obviously have people who came in as civilians, like myself, came directly from basic training, and then you have individuals that have been in the Army and are enlisted and are commissioning. Yeah. So, you know, we had a first sergeant.
Did you really?
Newly promoted as first sergeant while we were all going through OCS. Those are the individuals that you want to ask questions about, because coming straight from basic training and going to OCS, when you start doing things like battle drills, which is a portion of OCS where you go out into the woods and you run missions, and you have to lead missions on your own, and so do your teammates. So you have to both know how to lead and take direction. If we didn't have any prior enlisted, those would have been so messy. There are individuals out there that have actually experienced combat, have actually run battle drills, and are able to teach you. But again, you have to be open to be being taught.
Yeah, very true. Good points. All right, my third tip, which we've kind of touched on it in a lot of ways. It's because it's more conceptual than it is like an objective application. But my third tip for being successful in basic training is to maintain a positive perspective. I don't know if positive is the right way to describe it, but maybe
I was very neutral.
I'm not saying like, you know, there's like pessimistic people and optimistic people. I'm not saying like you don't have to drink the Kool-Aid. You don't have to be like fake. Like when it sucks, it's gonna suck. And like, I think it's important to be honest with yourself when things are sucking. But what I mean by that is to think about the gravity of the situation, and because there's gonna be moments where like you want to feel sorry for yourself. You're like, yeah, my buddy didn't tuck in his bed sheets and now I gotta do push-ups for it, and that sucks, right? But at the end of the day, you signed up for this. It was probably optional. We're not drafting anybody right now. So you chose to sign up, right? Many jobs require you to pay for the training. You gotta pay for college tuition. You have to pay for NASM certifications or Six Sigma certifications or whatever online training, right? There's always a fee that's required for you to participate in this training that may or may not be beneficial for you in the long run. Basic training, you get paid, right? You get somewhere free to stay, you get free meals, you get free clothes, free-ish, taxpayer dollars. Yeah, taxpayer dollars. You do pay for some of it. But at the end of the day, you're basically getting paid to just go hang out with your friends in the woods. Like, yeah, you're getting paid to do some sucky stuff, but you're like getting paid to gain some invaluable skills that are gonna positively affect you for the rest of your life. And I think that like maintaining a very like realistic but positive perspective throughout basic training is really what's gonna carry you through those sucky moments. Because when you're tired, you're like, man, I'm wet and my feet hurt and I've got blisters and I don't wanna do this anymore. It's not that bad. It's not that bad.
Yeah. I will say, I think I had a pretty neutral attitude throughout basic training. You know, there were times where I'm like, this is really hard, but it is a lot easier to just stick with it and finish. I mean, 9 weeks is really not that long. It goes by really fast. I know it seems slow while you're going through it, but once you get done, you'll realize it's not that hard. And it's just a lot easier to just wake up every day, shut your brain off and just do it. I mean, basic training is easy because you typically don't have a leadership position. Literally all you got to do is just get up and follow directions.
You don't have to use your brain that much.
Someone tells you what to do all the time.
Go stand here. Okay, go stand there.
You just got to make it through. But I will say, the flip side of it is, you know, even if you're going through basic training, you're like, man, I really want to quit. It is faster to just get through basic training and go to your AIT, your first duty station, whatever, than it is to say, I don't want to do this anymore, because the process of separating while you're in basic training is pretty long. It's honestly just easier if you finish and just move on. You know, it's, you don't want to be in the situation where you're trying to like chapter out of the military and everybody else has already moved on to their AIT and you are just stuck in basic training land while your paperwork is getting sorted out. It's just easier to just keep your head down, get through basic training, because again, it's not that hard, and it's just a lot easier if you just do and don't think. Just
Yeah.
Get through your day. Again, it's 8-9 weeks. It's not that much time.
Yeah.
The days go by fast, though. They really do.
Yeah. I think they say that the days are long, but the weeks are short.
Yeah, that's how it feels.
Yeah.
I mean, you're also not sleeping, but.
I remember getting like 5 to 6 hours of sleep a night and being miserably tired. But then I remember the upperclassmen being like, just so you're aware, you're sleeping way more now than you will during the academic year.
Crazy. You remember Fire Guard?
But it was true.
Fire Guard was the worst thing on the planet. That was the only issue that I had with anyone all of basic training.
Yeah.
I had just pulled, I can't remember if they were half-hour, 1-hour Fire Guard shifts. I don't remember at this point. But I was pulling one, and I went to go wake up the girl who was supposed to replace me, and she said, no, I don't feel like it. And I was like, I saw red.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna have to flip her mattress to get her out of bed, because you can't go until you're relieved. And I'm sure not gonna pull another whole Fire Guard shift. But those are the moments that I'm talking about when I say don't be that guy or girl. Just be a team player, get up, do what you have to do. It sucks. It sucks for everyone else too.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard for everyone. Whatever you're going through, everybody else is also going through the same
It's hard
thing.
for everyone. That definitely feeds into the perspective thing that I'm trying
It does.
to hammer home. I definitely remember, it's always nice. So the upperclassmen or cadre, whatever you are, like drill sergeants, the people who are managing those who are going through basic training, they have to play this image, this tough guy role. They have a job to do, and that's to make your life suck so that you build resiliency, gain skills, become a valuable member of the team. But it was always nice when they sort of broke character and be like, I can tell this kid's having a bad day, and I'd be like, look, buddy, it's not that bad. Like,
Yeah.
we're about to go get some food.
And that's like the end of basic training. You kind of get to see your drill sergeant's personalities a little bit more. The beginning, the whole purpose of basic training is to break you guys down and then build you back up as a team.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, that requires being a little bit more strict as a drill sergeant. And obviously, these are individuals who are higher ranking than you are, and you need to listen.
Yeah.
But, when you get to the end of basic training, you kind of get to see people's personalities a little bit more. But it is funny from there going into the real Army, because you're still a little bit, you see someone higher ranking and you kind of jump a little bit. But I swear it gets easier once you get out into the actual real Army.
Yeah, I was very much numb to rank when I left West Point. I had seen and met and had meals and spent time with more generals than I had lieutenants. Like, I saw maybe, besides like graduation day, right, when everyone literally pins on their second lieutenant rank and then goes off in the world, I saw a very small handful of lieutenants. Like, I saw 5 or 6 second lieutenants and maybe 2 or 3 first lieutenants my whole 4 years at West Point. But then you go to class and it's just like lieutenant colonel, full bird, 3-star, 4-star, 2-star, and you're like, good morning, sir, what's up? I met General Odierno and General Dempsey and all those guys, and it's just like, you know that these are powerful men, but you just get so used to being like, oh yeah, that's officer. Generals run the Army, we see generals all the time. But then you get to the real Army and you see like a major lieutenant colonel, that's like a real moment.
All I ever saw in basic training were captains.
Yeah.
And so the first time I saw a general, in basic training, they kind of teach you to be scared of officers, which, like, the majority of us, you don't have to be scared of at all. I don't think anyone was scared of me as an officer. No. I mean, my soldiers called me mom. So
it should be respect. I just think it's presented as fear for some reason.
It is, but I remember that. So I think I told you the first time, I had never seen a first lieutenant like out in the wild until I was a second lieutenant going to BOLC.
And no one tells you if you're supposed to salute him or not?
I saluted the first lieutenant that I saw as a second lieutenant.
In this moment, it's technically not wrong,
It's
right?
not wrong, but it's not right.
Yeah.
It's not wrong, but it's not right. And they just stared at me and kept walking, and I was like, I feel like an idiot. So I went and I Googled it. Yeah, I'm a second lieutenant, and I'm Googling, do you salute first lieutenants? Because nobody taught me that. No one told me, not all through OCS.
But my shoes were shiny. So that's good.
That's great. But I do remember, we would be sitting in class, and so when you go to BOLC, which is our training that we do after you commission as an officer. And I remember sitting in class, and I think we only had one West Point grad in my class, but she was so comfortable talking to generals, to colonels. And I just, every time I saw a general, I'd be like, I don't know what to do. These people are scary.
I remember this one kid, he was like a freshman or sophomore. I don't know, because he was kind of a quiet kid, right? Like, not extroverted at all. He knocks on our door one time. He's like, you want to see something cool? We're like, sure, buddy. So we go to his room, and like laying on his office chair, like draped around the office chair, was an OCP top, right? Like a combat top. I was like, and I could kind of see like a unit patch that I wasn't familiar with. I was like, this is not yours, is it? And he goes, no. And he flips it over. It's got a 3-star on it. He went up to the lieutenant general, who was the superintendent of West Point, and said, hey, sir, can I borrow your blouse for an evening? And he just took off his shirt and gave it to this guy. And he's running around the barracks with 3. This is a cadet running around with 3 stars on his chest. We're like, minds blown. We're like taking pictures. Like, it's not like you can't just go buy that at the PX, or what I mean? No one's gonna like, you don't have to like be a general to buy general's rank. But like, it was just the craziest moment for us being like, it's got 3 stars. It belongs to a general. But it was also General Caslin, which we all loved. So, still do. Bobby C. He drowned a deer in a lake. That was like his famous story.
But why?
Well, he shot it and it didn't die.
Okay.
And it was on the edge of a lake, and instead of wasting another round, he just...
Gotcha. I thought he just maybe saw a deer and said, nope, not today, bud.
At least that's what he told us. And I believe him because he was like, it was that guy.
Oh, gosh.
Good times. The best thing about the Army, even though you know, we're whatever branch of service, I can't relate to the other ones, but I feel like the Army specifically just breeds miserable experiences. But those miserable experiences bring people together. I learned about different types of fun, like yesterday. Have you ever heard of type 1, type 2, and type 3 fun?
No.
Type 1 fun is like arcade games, skiing. Like, it sounds fun, it is fun, and you look back on it and you're like, yeah, that's fun, but it's not like satisfying in any way.
Okay.
Type 2 fun is like, this is sucky in the moment, but you immediately look back and you're like, that was fun. Kind of like
Trauma bonding.
Trauma bonding, bodybuilding. You're like
trauma bonding, the thing we do in the military.
Yeah, and then there's type 3, which is not fun in the moment, not fun when you look back on it, but it does tell a great story. And I feel like the Army is like always, it's all 3.
Yeah.
But it's a lot more type 2 and type 3 than you really want it to be. But those trauma bonds last for life.
They really do. You know, when people ask me what I miss about the Army, you know, it's only been 2 years since we both got out, but the thing that I will say that I miss the most are the people. Like, you genuinely do make the best friends in the Army, and a lot of them become lifetime friends. Like, you go through some shared suck together, but in the end, you just become super close because of it. You know, I know that I have quite a few lifelong friends that I would not have had without the Army.
Yeah, I agree. I have a lot more Army friends than I do non-military friends. And it's not even because we're like, oh, bro, we used to shoot guns together. It's just that shared experience.
The shared
values too.
Yes, the shared trauma.
Trauma bonding. Put that in your notebook.
I don't know. There's just, you know, my experience in the Army was I had some of the greatest moments of my life and some of the worst moments of my life, and I definitely don't think I'd have it any other way.
I agree. If you found that interesting or useful, informative, whatever, let us know down in the comments. We can totally do more of this if it's helpful for anybody out there. We both have, technically I wore the uniform for 9 years. We both got like a ton of experience when it comes to leadership and serving in different roles and what it's like to be promoted and how to game the system and PCSing and PT and, you know, the state of the Army. There's like an infinite number of topics we talk about. And if anything interests you guys, interests this community, I'm here on behalf of Craig Club, but at the end of the day, we're just 2 Army veterans that are trying to help people out. So hope you enjoyed it. Comment down below. Anything before we sign off?
Mm-mm.
That's it for now. Till next time.